I'm sorry. Okay. I'm Kate Nuss, a board member here at the Union Library, and I'd like to welcome you all today to the Children's Room. We are having a room dedication today for Harriet T. Ehrsam, and we are amongst family and friends here. Today we honor the legacy of Harriet Ehrsam, who as the director of the Union Library from 1991 to 2016 served her community, and she also contributed to the education of the children in the community. Harriet impressed kindness, polite cordiality, and friendly treatment to all people, everyone, irrespective of their position or influence in the community. We are so pleased to have members of Harriet's family joining us today, and as well as that, we have guests that are going to be speaking, special guests. The Board of the Union Library thanks all of you for joining us here today, and without further ado, I'd like to invite Michael Celec. He is the director of the Union Library, to the podium.
Thank you, Kate. Thank you all. Hi, thank you for coming. I am Michael Celec. I'm the current director of Union Library, and I probably knew Harriet less well than any of you. I never actually met her, but we spoke once on the phone, and we had a nice talk. So as we begin the remembrances, I'm going to just say a word about Harriet's impact here, both on the Hatboro community and, of course, especially on the library. I've been here just over 4 years now, and it's an understatement to say that people still remember Harriet. They actually still miss Harriet, and there's a group in town that Harriet will always be their librarian. So occasionally someone will even still ask today if Harriet is here. I don't know where they've been, but we still do get that question. So in a way, that's right. Yes, she is here. Certainly here with us today. People often tell me why they miss Harriet, and we still have great story times here today, but Harriet's story times will always be legendary. This library had a deficit of children's participation when Harriet started in 1991, and her work with children and families was so effective and significant that soon we had dozens of children coming every week to see Harriet's story times and other children's programming. That's a big deal for any library, and Harriet did all that herself. One of the things that binds us is having the chance to serve this historic institution in a long line of librarians that started long before we were here and will continue long after we're all gone. I've heard many Harriet stories, but one of the things I've been looking forward to today is hearing more from those of you that knew her well. I want to hear your stories about this extraordinary librarian who did so much for the borough and for this historic institution. So looking forward to hearing your stories. LuAnn Kline is a board member and committee member who's going to introduce the next speaker. I want to thank the committee, which is LuAnn and Kate Nuss and Kearns, and Suzanne Rush for making this happen, because without them, this kind of event really doesn't come together. Thank you. Here's LuAnn.
Okay, so our next speaker was actually born and raised in Hatboro, and she's served on the Borough Council for over 10 years. She's also the mayor of Hatboro, and she's a former Hatboro Library board member. And she worked closely with Harriet through the years, and she continues in her current role to also help and support the library. So presently, she is the state representative for the 152nd District of Montgomery and Philadelphia counties, and we're pleased to welcome State Representative Nancy Guenst.
Believe it or not, I still get nervous when I talk in front of a lot of people. But anyway, thank you so much for inviting me here today to honor our beloved Miss Harriet. She had an incredible effect on so many people, and especially children. I want to tell you one little story about Miss Harriet that happened approximately 30 years ago, and I will never forget it. On a sunny summer day, my 10-year-old son, Alex, announced he wanted to set up a lemonade stand outside our home on Academy Road. After about 3 hours and making $5.25, he came inside and put his things away, saying, "I'm going to the library now," and went off to return the book and pick up a new one. About a week later, a letter comes in the mail from the library addressed to Alex. took a lot for me not to open it. When it was opened by my son, it read, "Dear Alex, thank you so much for your generous donation of $5.25. I swear to God, this is true. To our wonderful library. It was so kind of you to do so, and we will put this money to good use. Thank you again, Miss Harriet." And that is how much she affected the hearts and minds of our children for so many years. So God bless you, Harriet. You are dearly missed.
Good morning. I'm Kearns. My name was White, and I went to school with Harriet and her husband. And we were in Future Teachers of America together and Color Guard. And so I knew her pretty well when we were young, but then I moved away for 39 years. But every time I came back to visit my mother, I came to the library because Harriet let me in. And just like I lived here, so it was wonderful. But this morning it's my pleasure to introduce another board member, Frank Jarrett. He's an all-around member and leader of the Hatboro community. He's a Navy veteran. He's been a member of Hatboro Rotary since 1962. He lives by that Rotary motto, service above self. Some of you might know him because of Lobster Pot. He chaired it for a long time. This is our first fundraiser for Rotary, and he actually let it be held on his property for many years. Frank's also a member of the honorary director of the Hatboro Chamber of Commerce, and he told me that his great-great-great-grandfather, John Jarrett, was one of those 38 men who signed the Instrument of Partnership that brought the Union Library Company of Hatboro to us. But of special interest, Frank has served on the library board for many years, and with Harriet. So I give you Frank Jarrett.
As Karen has said, my time with the library goes back quite a ways. I predate our current director by 2 or 3 librarians prior to him. I was on the board when this room was constructed. We had a Philadelphia architect that designed this room, and I think they did an outstanding job with it. That was a great addition to the library. And, I was involved with other addition. In fact, Joe and I built the shelves in there and painted the room when that room was constructed. So, and she said, John Jarrett was my great grandfather from Horsham, who was one of the founding members of the library. My daughter was very interested in genealogy, traced that back and found out that it's 5 greats for her, so it's 4 for me, for John Jarrett. So there's an interesting group that there were 38 people in that founding group, which was probably everybody that lived in Hatboro at the time. It's a very interesting history. There's a little booklet of the history of the library, and I think it's probably out of publication now, but probably there are clues around. So if you get a chance to look back and read the history, it's really very interesting to find out where the books went during the Revolutionary War. And I don't know if people remember Thatcher Longstreth, the show. Most people remember Thatcher, who was visited here a couple times. The books were sent to his parents' home at one time during the Revolution, so he always had an interest in the Hatboro Library. But if you ever get a chance, read up on that book, and you'll really find it interesting. And Harriet certainly, I didn't realize she was here as many years as she was. But she certainly did a great job, and she was very, very good with handling the children's groups, which was in this room. And I think we all have fond memories of Harriet. Thank you.
I have next. Okay, so our next speaker is Joseph Tryon. He's been a longtime champion of the Union Library, as well as a friend to Harriet. Joe is the past president of the Union Library. He's helped with several building projects, and two of which include helping to establish the Myron Thomas Room, and also working with Frank, as Frank just said, about building the bookshelves in the circulation room. Over the past 30-plus years, Mr. Tryon has consistently supported the library in any way that he could, and we welcome Joe to this event today and joining us to celebrate the memory of Harriet.
So I'll try not to get too emotional over this, but I've known the Ehrsam family for about, since 1970, 71. Saw the children grow up, and certainly they had two businesses in town, the restaurant in Hatboro, and Harriet at one time had her own, I don't know what you would call it, knittery, stitchery, or something like that, and we all would buy our things that if you knit it, we went there. And I enjoyed that. When Harriet, I was on the board when Harriet applied for the job, and I mean, I already knew the family. I already knew her love of the community and Bob's love of the community. And so it was almost a given that Harriet was going to get the job. The thing that I told her, and I wish I would have listened to my own speech, but I told her, always work with your board. Work very closely with the board. When we built the other wing, Frank and I, we built all the wooden shelving, and we painted it and everything. Frank had me up on the top of a scaffold on the top of that, and I'm afraid of heights, so but I did it anyway because Frank said get it done, so we did. When she came to me about this wing, I was like, what? Where are we going to put it? She said, I know exactly where we're going to put it. Yep. And she told me exactly, and I'm like, oh no, we got another major project. And she said, you know, my board's behind me. I'm going to try to get this done. So Frank and I volunteered to do the same thing here, and she said, no, I've got it all under control. We're going to take care of this ourselves. I said, okay, I understand. You don't want me to have anything to do with it. No, I'm just kidding. This whole building, Frank and I started with the front part of the building, and it was a labor of love to try to keep that going the way it is currently. Keeping it the old-fashioned building and maintaining that. And we did for years. And then we went on to the school, the actual county system. And after we did that, we started to expand using the county book library system. Having grown up in a town that did not have a library, I find this fascinating, and I always came over here sometimes just to come over and sit down and relax and grab a book off the shelf type of thing. So it was always one of my favorite things to do during my lunch hour. Harriet was a treasure, and I will treasure just knowing her. I would come in here and talk to her a little bit about what's going on and things that were happening in the library, and she always related it somewhat to the community and how much community support that she was receiving. And I'm happy to hear that the borough is substantially, probably through Nancy, substantially supporting the library. In the past, that was more difficult. So it's nice to get some funding that you don't have to have multiple fundraisers. But I will always be very happy to know when I see the some of the Ehrsam family sitting here. It's nice to have, to know the library is ongoing. Congratulations for your job, 4 years, that's not bad. You only have 40 more. But it's nice to see the library is very productive. I used to love to come over when she was having the children's hour. Actually, I was going to mention, one of these hands is my daughter. I have a 21-year-old daughter, and Harriet made sure that Madison's hand was up on the wall. And Frank and another gentleman actually glued them up, so they may fall down. No, I'm just kidding. But thank you for the opportunity to talk about Harriet and this library. Like I said, it's a labor of love. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Marissa Johnson is a lifelong resident of Hatboro who graduated from the Hatboro High School in 2010. Since then, she's earned a bachelor's degree in French and International Studies and a master's degree in education. Today, Marissa will share her memories of visiting the Union Library as a child in the early 1990s.
Hey guys, how are you? I'm sorry. This is really emotional for me because Miss Harriet was like family. She was like my grandmother growing up in this town. So she really meant a lot to me. And she meant a lot to all of the other kids, every single one of us who have our handprints on this wall. We were so excited for this room. We were so excited to be a part of it. And she really made sure that we were part of it throughout the whole step. She came to our elementary school. We all went to Pennypack, which I'm sure many of you may know now has just closed, which has been really emotional for many of us. But it's so lovely to know that we're still a part of this library, even as we get older. So to myself and my fellow elementary school students, Miss Harriet was not just a librarian. Primarily, she was a genius because she had to be a billion times smarter than everybody else, because how else could she always have the answers to our questions and know everything that was in every book in this library? And not only that, she also had to be a scientist, because how else would we be able to take science classes in the summer? So, as Miss Harriet was my first example of a librarian, I grew up knowing for sure that you couldn't be a librarian without knowing everything in the world, including science. Secondly, Miss Harriet was magical. No one had ever given us our own special room to read books in before. So when she opened the children's wing of the library, it was exactly like having our own magic tree house. It was made even more special by the fact, again, that she made us a part of it. Having our handprints incorporated into the wall was the proudest thing that you could boast of as an elementary school student. And even in middle school, I was still bringing my new friends to see my handprint on the wall because that made me a celebrity. And as Nancy Guenst said, she would always go the extra mile. I'm not very tall, and I specifically asked if my handprint, and I will point it out, would be at eye level because I wanted to be able to see it every time I came into the library. Thirdly, Miss Harriet proved that movies were completely wrong about librarians. I never understood why librarians in movies shush people and why people avoided the library, especially because Miss Harriet always welcomed me in the library. And part of the reason I've been successful as a teacher is because I am extremely loud. And she never shushed me once. If we would get loud or overexcited, she would just ask us to calm down and get a hold of ourselves, and that just seemed completely reasonable. Lastly, Miss Harriet gave me one of the greatest gifts I've ever received, which is a love and appreciation for books. This also turned out to be a bit of a curse, because since 5 years old, and I'm now turning 30 next week, so I spent about 25 years of my life fighting against the urge to sneak in here and climb up those steps. Miss Harriet guarded those with her life against us, and the only reason I never even tried was out of sheer respect for her. So Miss Harriet made sure that this library was more than just a place filled with old books, but instead was a place filled with love and adventure and mystery. And for this reason, my love of books developed into a love of exploring new languages and new books in those languages. So I can happily say that Miss Harriet is one of the key reasons that I was able to find a calling as a French teacher. And recently, one of my seniors told me that she had applied to colleges to become a librarian. And it just made me so happy to know that I could be a part of continuing Miss Harriet's legacy and encourage the next generation of librarians.
Wow, that was wonderful.
Thank you.
I love hearing from a child's perspective, and I think that's so nice after hearing from adult perspectives. It's nice to see that her influence has really, changed your life and directed you. Thank you so much for all of our speakers today. This has been a wonderful morning. Thank you so much for our guests for joining us as well. We have a few brief announcements before we close the ceremony. In the back of the room, you will see that there's a plaque, and the plaque has Harriet's photo on it. It's a lovely plaque. Please take a look at that. And then as you exit the children's room and enter the librarian's living room, you will see that there's a display of artwork on the wall. And Harriet's sister is Barbara Zurich, who is a local artist, and you'll see 2 of her paintings hanging on the wall. So please take a look at that as well. So at this time, Bonnie, Harriet's youngest daughter. Oh, you're both, okay. So Harriet's family would like to say a few words.
I will try my best to get through this. First off, we would just like to thank the community and the board for honoring our mother.
Yes, thank you.
My dad said before we left, he couldn't do this. There's no way he could have gotten through this. But he said that that she's probably sitting behind us at that window, watching us and remembering all the kids that she had an impact on in this community. When our mom started the library, actually the same day, that our wonderful niece and daughter,
She said to me, I will say this real quick, she said, I know everybody on the board. I told them I'm waiting 2 weeks. My first grandchild is coming into the world. We should have known then, Ashley Ann was 2 weeks late. So the day that my mom started at this wonderful place, my oldest was born.
Yes, so it holds a very special place and day. She had a vision to create a space at this library for children to develop a love of reading and learning in fun ways. She achieved this by doing story times for all ages and many different educational programs. She also went to local schools to read to students and encourage them to visit the library. My mom's favorite part of her job was story time. She had said to us that honestly, she preferred talking to kids over talking to most adults. Generations of family attended her story times and programs. She knew all the kids by name, and they all called her Miss Harriet. Fortunately, we were blessed to call her our mother, and Sammy, which is what her grandchildren call her. Every time anyone ever said anything to us, it was always about how kind, caring, sweet our mother was, and that always made us proud. We know that she would be humbled and proud to know that her legacy continues. Thank you.
Thank you.